After back-to-back playoff appearances that did not result in the ending that Michigan wanted, and now with Coach Harbaugh serving a 4-game suspension to start the 2023 season, it's obviously not been the last couple of years for Wolverine fans that they have wanted. The only bright side that they've had is the win they've picked up against Ohio State the last 2 years. The question this year remains, can they make it back in the playoffs? But not just that, can they play for a national championship? They've proven they belong in the top four. They've proven they're a top tier, blue blood, Power 5 program in college football. But ultimately, if you can't win a national championship, it doesn't mean anything. So that's the problem that Michigan is going to look to fix this season. That's something that ultimately only they can control, and it's something that J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum is going to look to have Michigan rolling with this season. If we take a look at their transfers that Michigan got, start with Ernest Hausman, the defensive linebacker from Nebraska transferring in. That was a huge get. One of multiple 4-stars that you're going to see in this recruiting class / transfer class for Michigan. You did lose Eric All to Iowa, transferred with backup quarterback Cade McNamara. Ladarius Henderson, the interior offensive lineman, from Arizona State transfers in. That's another huge get. And I think the key for Michigan this offseason was their additions in the offensive line category. If you look just a little bit lower, I'll get to it in just a second. You see Miles Hinton from Stanford. He transferred in. That's another 4-star offensive lineman. And he also transferred with Drake Nugent, another 4-star offensive lineman from Stanford. But going back up just a little bit, R.J. Moten transferred out to Florida. Josiah Stewart, a really good edge out of Coastal Carolina, transfers in. A.J. Barner is going to replace Eric All. I think Eric All is ultimately the better tight end, but A.J. Barner, still a huge get there for the Wolverines. Mentioned Hinton and Nugent. You lose Andrew Anthony to Oklahoma. You lose McNamara. I mentioned that. Taylor Upshaw transfers out. Josh Wallace from UMass transfers in. That's going to be a 1-year guy. You can see it here. And then you also get Jack Tuttle, who's a quarterback. Probably not going to play, but it's going to be a good experience for him should something happen to McCarthy. Flip over to their recruiting class, though. And this is where it wasn't like, I think it was a top 20 class, maybe. Yeah, ranked number 20 last year. They've already got 26 commits for 2024, so they're a little bit ahead of the curve there. But ultimately, it was a good class for Michigan, even though it may not just look like it on paper. You had 9 early enrollees. Jair Hill and Cameron Calhoun, both cornerbacks, both top 35 in their position. And then Cole Cabana, 4-star running back, also joined the team this spring. Obviously, he's not going to play. You have the best running back in college football with Blake Corum in the backfield. Cole Cabana, take your red shirt and watch these guys work. Corum and Donovan Edwards. Amir Herring, offensive tackle. Probably same situation. You had those 3 guys transfers in. You returned a couple of guys from last season. I don't expect Herring to play right off. I do think he takes a little bit of time to develop. And you've got 2 wide receivers, both 3-stars. They're early enrolled. Kumba, edge, Zach Marshall, tight end, and Benjamin Hall, another running back that I think ultimately you just take a seat, and then you and hopefully Cabana will be that 2 running back system for Michigan after Corum and Donovan Edwards leave. Really good edge in Etta coming in. He was the number 15 ranked defensive end in high school this year. Then you got Hillman, athlete, number 7 athlete, number 4 in the state of Virginia. Carmelo English out of Phoenix City, number 4-star wide receiver in Alabama, going to be coming into the Wolverines. You get Cameron Brandt, another 4-star. 4-star tight end, 4-star athlete, Jason Hewlett. Bridgman, linebacker, 4-star, and that's going to wrap up your 11 4-stars for Michigan. Combine that with that transfer portal class I just mentioned, and Michigan's looking at a really solid team here. I think I can pull up, I guess I cannot pull up their depth chart. I don't think it's here. Okay, I'll try to do that in just a second. But Finishing out their recruiting class, you got Roderick Pierce, Nathan Afobe, Evan Link, so that's more interior guys. DeJohn Waller Jr., Brooks Bear, Kendrick Bell, Breon Ishmael, Hayden Moore, and then Adam Samaha. It's an Ann Arbor, Michigan native, the kicker. Again, a really, really solid class top to bottom here for Michigan. It may not seem like it. It may not seem like it was a great class when you finish number 20, but when you look at what they needed and what they got, I mean, these two guys right here, Hill and Calhoun, are going to be really, really good guys off the rip as soon as they touch the field. Cabana paired with Benjamin Hall, both guys that are probably going to sit and then come in and make an impact starting next season. Zach Marshall, tight end, you pair him with A.J. Barner, the Indiana transfer. They did get James Turner. I don't think I mentioned him a second ago. Kicker from Louisville. Okay, I was making sure I didn't skip anybody else. But regardless, it was a really, really good class for Michigan this past offseason, and ultimately one that I think is going to get them back in the playoffs this year. Now, here's my issue with Michigan and Michigan fans. This is no shot at you guys. This is just my honest prediction. This is how I think this season is going to go. For Michigan, you're looking at two games. You're looking at Penn State on November 11th, and you're looking versus Ohio State on November 25th. You've beat Ohio State 2 years in a row. It's going to be hard to do it 3 years in a row. It's a big, big rivalry game. Ohio State's going to have a really, really good offense, a really good quarterback. They're not dropping off a lot with C.J. Stroud to whoever starts for them this year. It doesn't really matter who starts for them this year. It's going to be a good team. Penn State, Drew Allar, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, and all those recruits they've got the past couple of years, they're going to show up this year. This is Penn State's sleeper year. Those are the two games you need to watch out for if you're Michigan. With that said, Harbaugh is now suspended for the first 4 games of the season. That means he's out versus ECU, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers. ECU and Holton Ahlers, not a team to take lightly. You do host them. If you take them lightly, ECU can mess around and beat you. But I don't think it's anything you need to worry about. The first game you need to really concern yourself with is when you travel to Lincoln, Nebraska on September 30th. That is your trap game. Nebraska is going to be ready to go on that one. It's a home game. Nebraska always sells out home games. That is your trap game if you're Michigan. Right after that, you go on the road again to Minnesota. Minnesota's not a team. They're not world beaters. They're not going to contend for a playoff. But if you leave them in the game, they could mess around and beat you. Those are the two trap games for Michigan. Ideally, in a good scenario, in a world where this season goes how Michigan wants it, I think you're looking at a 11-1 Michigan team. I say that because what I mentioned when I first got to this segment. You've beat Ohio State 2 years in a row. It's going to be hard to do it 3. I think you could beat Ohio State. I don't think you beat Penn State and Ohio State. So those two are interchangeable to me. Maybe you beat Penn State. Maybe you don't beat Ohio State. However you want to look at it, I know you would much rather beat Ohio State than beat Penn State. If you had to pick a game to lose, you're going to want to lose to Penn State. But with that said, you're better off dropping a game to Penn State, dropping a game to Ohio State than you are dropping a game to Nebraska, to Minnesota. Look at Ohio State's loss to Purdue a couple years ago. Look at Alabama's loss to LSU last year. Look at Clemson's loss to South Carolina. Those are teams you don't want to lose to. You would much rather lose for the teams that are competing for the conference championship and ultimately the playoff spot. Had Alabama only lost to Tennessee last year, they probably would have been in the playoffs. Tennessee had Hendon Hooker not gotten beat last year, probably could have been in the playoffs. Or not gotten beat, gotten hurt last year, probably could have been in the playoffs. So, Michigan, even with 11-1, you could still find yourself in the Big Ten championship. You win that, you're probably in. You're sitting at 12-1. It's a good spot to be in if you, like I said, if you are Michigan. So, with that, Michigan, 11-1 season, 12-1 probable. I think Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan all beat each other. I think it's round robin. Say you beat Ohio State, lose to Penn State. Penn State beats you, loses to Ohio State, vice versa. You get how it goes. That's what I think this season is going to look like for the Big Ten. I think you've got three contenders who could make the college football playoff. I think Michigan is one of them, obviously. I like your chances to contend. I like your chances to get in, but what you have to realize, and this is, it doesn't matter if you watch this video, if you watch my Penn State, my Ohio State, my Alabama, my Georgia, Texas, USC, I'm going to say the same thing on every one of them. This season in college football, everyone wants parity. There is parity this season. This is the closest that teams have been skill-wise, just head-to-head, that there's been in I don't know how many years. Last couple of years, Alabama and Georgia have just kind of drum rolled everybody. Yes, they almost lost last season. Georgia did to Ohio State, but in the grand scheme of things, there is a very, very tight competition window here that I don't think we're going to see starting next year when the playoffs expand to 12 years. So, give me Michigan to go 11-1. Give me Michigan to, I want to say win the Big Ten East, but ultimately I don't know how that tiebreaker is going to pan out. Give me Michigan to be a top 6 team at the end of the season. I will say at worst you're going to be a top 10. I like Michigan's season. There's a lot of upside. Let me know in the comment section how you guys see this season panning out for Michigan. I would love to know. And then let me know who you would rather lose to. Would you rather lose to Penn State or Ohio State? Thanks, guys.